This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
China's imports of Iranian oil have held above 500,000 barrels per day on average for the last 3 months, traders and ship tracking firms said, as buyers judge that getting crude at cheap prices outweighs any risks from busting U.S. sanctions. Chinese purchases of Iranian crude have continued this year despite the sanctions that, if enforced, would allow Washington to cut off those who violate them from the U.S. economy. President Joe Biden's administration has so far chosen not to enforce the sanctions against Chinese individuals and companies amid negotiations that could revive a 2015 nuclear deal that would allow Iran to sell its oil openly again.
Russia increased its flow of gas to Europe via Poland and Belarus as well as Ukraine on Wednesday, easing some of Europe's concerns about tight supplies before winter and pushing down wholesale prices. Low flows to Europe and reverse flows on the Yamal-Europe pipeline last week, meaning gas flowed eastwards into Poland instead of westbound into Germany, had worsened a supply squeeze in Europe that has driven up prices for industry and consumers. But Russia started pumping gas to Germany again late on Monday, acting on an order by President Vladimir Putin to increase supplies to Europe and rebuild Russian inventories there once domestic storage tanks were replenished.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
A group of countries, companies and cities committed on Wednesday to phasing out fossil fuel vehicles by 2040, as part of efforts to cut carbon emissions and curb global warming. But the world's top 2 carmakers, Toyota Motor Corp and Volkswagen AG, as well as major car markets China, the United States and Germany, did not sign up, highlighting the challenges in shifting to zero emissions. The Glasgow Declaration on Zero-Emission Cars and Vans, unveiled at climate talks in the Scottish city, sees the group's pledge to rapidly accelerate the transition to low-carbon emission vehicles, aiming to green leading markets by 2035.
India's fuel demand rose in October to a 7-month peak, with gasoline sales surging to an all-time high, government data showed on Tuesday, as festivals boosted mobility and economic activity in the world's third biggest oil consumer. Fuel consumption, a proxy for oil demand, rose over 12% to 17.87 million tons last month from September. It was up 0.8% from the corresponding period last year and 3% from October 2019. Data from the Petroleum Planning and Analysis Cell, PPAC, showed. Consumption got a boost from the start of the festival season in October, offsetting the impact of high prices, Refinitiv analyst Ahsan Ul-Haq said. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. China has closed a border crossing with Myanmar as it seeks to stop the spread of the coronavirus, further disrupting tin concentrate imports, an association official and a Chinese smelter source said on Wednesday. China, the world's biggest producer of refined tin, relied on neighboring Myanmar for 94% of its tin concentrate imports in 2019. That slipped to 91.7% in 2020 and was below 82% in January to September due to repeated pandemic-related disruption. Kui Lin, chief China representative at the International Tin Association, said the Chinese land port of Menga had been temporarily closed after the latest COVID-19 resurgence in Myanmar's Hua state.
Copper prices edged higher on Wednesday as signs of tight supply offset concerns that economic growth is slowing in China, the world's biggest metals consumer. Data showed that Chinese factory gate prices rose last month at the fastest pace in 26 years, reducing the chances of an interest rate cut to stimulate the economy. China's metals-intensive construction sector, meanwhile, is engulfed in a debt crisis, with property developer China Evergrande Group facing a bond repayment deadline on Wednesday.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Indonesia's giant palm oil industry, long a target of global green groups, is shoring up its defenses closer to home as it tries to counter growing anti-palm oil sentiment among a more environmentally conscious generation of young Indonesians. Indonesia, the world's top palm oil producer, is training farmers and teachers and running social media campaigns to highlight the positive aspects of the $50 billion industry. We must tell the world about the benefits of palm oil, Ahmed Moulazal, the corporate division head of BPDP, a government body in charge of collecting export taxes, told a media training workshop for farmers in Kalimantan via Zoom. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.